Well, all three US indices on Friday saw declines. When we look at the Dow, it was down around 1/3% or thereabouts. When we look at the S&P 500, down over 0.5%, and the Nasdaq was down around 1.4% in trade on Friday. When we're looking at how US indices performed across the week, well, the Dow declined for a sixth week in a row and is down over 5.5% since then. The S&P 500 and the Nasdaq down for a fifth week in a row. In fact, the S&P 500 down 9% and the Nasdaq down 15% in the last 5 weeks. So sharp cuts seen across the board in benchmark indices. So the top companies seeing large declines. When we're looking at Europe, the story was no different. In fact, European stocks were far lower. The FTSE down over 1.5%. The Stock 600 also lower. So all 3 to 4 indices in Europe benchmarks were lower. In fact, the CAC declined for a third week in a row. Worst week since the 4th of March, down over 4% through the week. The DAX declined for a sixth week in a row. Worst week since again the 4th of March, down 3% since then. Oil seems to be at elevated levels as well. So oil was at $110 a barrel on Friday, declined a bit since. When we're looking at Asian indices and how they've opened in early trade today, sharp cuts seen across the board. The Nikkei is down 2.2%, the Shanghai is flat but still with a negative bias. The Hang Seng down nearly 4%, the SX 200 down around 1.3%, and the Kospi down nearly 1% in early trade today. And that is a cue from how US futures are doing as well. US futures also sharply lower. The Dow futures down 1.2%, the S&P 500 1.25%, and the Nasdaq nearly 1.2% as well. So sharp cuts across the board. When we're looking at US indices, further US futures are further lower and Asian indices are down as well. When we're looking at our own SGX Nifty, it's down around 1.25%. It was down nearly 1.75% in early trade today. So clearly seeing negative cues coming out of global as well as Indian markets. When we're looking at oil, a shade below $110 a barrel. We did speak a bit about that. Gold seeing sharp cuts as well. Gold is at around $1,875 a barrel. That's largely led by a bounce back in bond yields that has come late through last week and has spilt over into the start of this week as well. The US bond yields have gone, the 10-year US bond yield has gone above 3.14% now, highest level since 2018. And cryptos are obviously seeing the same kind of cuts that gold is seeing, but at a sharper level. So when we're looking at cryptos, they're down sharply, over 3% down. Pretty much all the the larger cryptos are down over 3%. When we're looking at Bitcoin, it's now below the $34,000 mark. So clearly negative cues coming out, especially for the higher risk assets as we see it.